personality shaped by being an athlete and a background in mainstream sports media, I found that the stories I was most interested in telling were the ones often overlooked, the ones that might not otherwise be told, the ones that show the intangible and not just the highlight reel. The Sports Council is about highlighting the great, the good, the unique, and everything in between in the Pacific Northwest sports world. I'm Jamie Council. Thanks for joining me.
You're listening to the Sports Council on 1340 ESPN, the Tri-Cities leader in sports.
There are a few defining moments as a kid. Winning a state championship is probably one of them. For those that are lucky enough, work hard enough to see their season come together, the moment is forever ingrained into their being, taking in their surroundings, possibly including the grandeur of the stadium. That's the question that the WIAA is looking to answer here in 2023.
What a football play by Jaden Lamar, incredible.
High school football state championships in Washington State. The Kingdom in Seattle was home to the Golden Game from 1977 to 1994. But after the infamous four tiles that ultimately led to its implosion in 2000, football state championships were held at the Tacoma Dome from 1995 to 2019. Following the pandemic, the site was changed to sites, moved to 3 high school stadiums across the west side of the state. The WIAA cited increasing costs and a decreasing fan attendance for the change, but the remodel of the Tacoma Dome was the final straw, according to the Washington Interscholastic Athletic Association Executive Director, Mick Hoffman.
Been an ongoing conversation since I came in the office 4 years ago. The people there are great. First and foremost, this has nothing to do with the people running the dome. They're responsible to turn a profit, cover costs, and hosting a high school event. They don't sell beer. The tickets are cheaper. It's way different than a concert. But they're also obligated to host some as a community asset. So for them, the people in the dome, it doesn't help them meet their required goals of their employment. That being said, with the remodel, we're the only sporting events they host there. And so there's the wrestling, and then the one that follows us, and then football. The turf, we need a surface to play on, and the turf that is there is beyond its life expectancy. So the first thing that we have to do is replace a turf, which is, you're talking hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million plus, to be able to bring a surface in there that would be safe for kids. So that's a first and foremost the biggest challenge. The Tacoma Dome, we can't expect them to buy that or say Tacoma if they're only going to host us for football. Now, if they start using it for high school games and all that, maybe there's something there. But again, turning away a concert to host high school events does not generate revenue for them. And so that's the business side. The difference with our event is there's huge economic impact to hosting WI events. I mean, Spokane will tell you that our B basketball tournament this year generated right around $5 million of economic impact for those restaurants and hotels and gas stations and grocery stores and other things in Spokane for 1 week in a tournament. They don't make that much in their community from a concert. The venue does, but the local economy isn't impacted the same way. So the challenge in Tacoma is Spokane is starting to get organized between their venues and the people running the sites and the high school athletic leadership in there. They're starting to talk and being able to provide some help for us to keep costs, because they got to cover their costs, but to keep costs down to where it's a sustainable model staying in a large building. We have not found that in Tacoma to any type of degree that really gets it done yet. I know they're working on it. That was part of our meeting last week. They're working hard on it. We're hoping they get there. We're willing to lean in wherever they need us. So that's one issue, is the turf, the cost. The other one is the seating for football. The last year we were in their root sports, they couldn't use their 50-yard camera from the sideline to the numbers, with the way the seats stack up. And there's a possibility of maybe moving the field over. We'd have to, pay to have goalposts brought in and put in there. And again, you're talking maybe 12,000 people total for 6 games. That doesn't pay the bills. And the sight lines for the fans aren't optimal. Coaches kind of liked it. From what we heard, is the fans were up and out, but cheerleaders are cheering into a wall. The players can't hear their fans, see their fans, because they're sitting behind them, 20 feet up. Think how the setup is for wrestling. And so there's just some logistical issues with it. The scoreboards are 1980s vintage. We can't even find parts for that stuff. So we literally hold our breath and have backup boards there to put down on the floor if we lose those scoreboards during basketball. So it's a tired building. They did a great upgrade with lights. I don't know if you saw any of our basketball. We were able to do some pregame stuff with new LED lights, but the sound is not as old as me, but it's old. And the scoreboard is in trouble with the controllers and everything else. So there's a lot of those type of items. Again, they're trying to find solutions. Over time, if they're not hosting as many concerts with Climate Pledge and some of these other venues coming on board. So hopefully we'll be able to work something out to maintain. Our goal isn't to move events if they're events that our kids want to play at and be at. That's not our goal. What a lot of people don't realize, which we're hoping to change, is football for our 6 state championship games. Our total attendance averages around 11 to 12,000 for 6 games, which is, about 15-20% of what the basketball venues across the state bring in. So the crowds aren't that large, and that's why the high school stadiums, the environment in there as far as the noise and that piece was ideal. That being said, we fully understand that a player getting to play on Husky Stadium is a lot different than playing in a high school field. So the challenge in the past has been cost, because if you don't have people showing up buying tickets, you can't pay for the facility. And so it's going to be important people show up this year to see if this is really, as big of a deal to the communities throughout Washington as is what we hear from a few individuals.
The grandest view in all of sports. Here amid college football's most beautiful backdrop.
In a place they call the greatest setting in college football. We're at Husky Stadium.
An experience people wanted, ask and you shall receive, says the WIAA here in 2023. Husky Stadium, home to the University of Washington football, that was named the site for a 1-year trial basis. But it is a partnership. It wouldn't have been done without concessions by both the WIAA and the University of Washington.
Jen Cohen and her team, they worked really hard on price. They were able to cut it down significantly, more than 50% from where we started years ago. She's very motivated to get Washington football and fans into their stadium. And so they see it as an opportunity for them as well. And so we're going to do it for 1 year to make sure it works for both parties.
Yeah, so this is more of a trial year, just this idea, and it could go horribly wrong or it could go really well. So it's just 1 year just to say, hey, let's try it.
Correct. I mean, some of the accommodations they're making for us and doing reasonable staffing and allowing us to use our own ticketing and some of those things may or may not work for them long term. They have conference alignment challenges that they're working on, and CFP expanded playoffs. So there's a lot of large ticket items for them that they have to consider to accommodate us. Other things that we'll see, there's not going to be a lot of cover for fans in these stadiums. We're going to be in the lower level only. The cover is up around the concourse or those top seats. So if it's a year like 2 years ago where it was incredibly wet, fans are going to be outdoors in it. And the players were already, right? So some of our teams were concerned that we didn't have multiple locker rooms at those high school sites. We still won't at Husky Stadium. And so there's, some scheduling challenges with that. The B schools, we're going to be playing on a Friday. 3 games on a Friday, so starting at 11 o'clock. So those B schools will play at 11 on Friday or Saturday. We've heard from the coaches and the athletic directors, superintendents that we've had this conversation with that, hey, playing at Husky Stadium is worth it. That's about what time we play anyway. They're playing at noon. But fans are going to have to navigate. I mean, there's a train that drops off right there, so there's a lot of ways to get there. We'll have to do a good job communicating, options. Concessions are going to be more than a high school stadium. So there's some challenges to face, and that was the assumptions we were working on. And when they made it somewhat, feasible for a 1-year financial, then we'll see if people show up and help pay the difference, because it's, increasing costs.
With that being said, what sorts of accommodations? I know we talked about it to where there's not locker rooms there. So what do you have to kind of do to transform Husky Stadium to fit what you need for a site for high school championships?
Yeah, we should have 2 locker rooms, which is great. So one of the things we do is we're spacing the games out, 4 hours to give teams, because it's state championships. So teams need plenty of time to prepare and get dressed and do their pregame meetings. And then afterwards, it's for a lot of them, for all of them, it's the last time that team will be together. And for seniors, that's the last time they're going to play at the high school level. And we know 90+% of our students, that's the last competitive football game they'll ever play. And so, they've spent 3-4 years together. They need time to do that at the end. And we don't want that to be rushed. That being said, fans then have a longer wait in between games. And so we keep hearing about the fan that would park it at the Tacoma Dome, for 6 games over 2 days. Will that fan come back? Does that fan still exist? That's what we're hoping to find. So that's one thing. We can decorate it up. We're going to have the electric boards, and so there'll be some really cool assets that we can use. And like I said, Jen and Dan Erickson and their team, they're really excited to make this a big deal for high school football. And so for us, that gives us a chance to execute that. And so in our staff, what a lot of people didn't realize when they were criticizing 3 sites, that's a lot of work for a staff of 13 to get out there and one, staff them with volunteers and workers, but also to make it a fan experience. And now we'll be focused on one site. So we're hoping to be able to do some stuff there that we haven't been able to do in the past.
Yeah, I was talking to BJ, one of the 13 for spring sports championships. She was in charge of 10 tournaments, 6 sites. And I'm like, well, what site are you going to go to? She's like, all of them. I'm like, BJ, that's 6 sites across the state. She's like, yeah, I know.
I mean, Andy Barnes with opening round basketball is at, as many as 20 sites with hundreds of games being played at one time. Cindy with volleyball, Justin with wrestling, regional wrestling. I mean, it's just, that's what our team has to do. They're doing with 2 dozen, 3 dozen sites at a time. That's preparing and then during the events. And so a lot of people don't realize that. So being at one site creates a lot of efficiencies for us, which we get out of that kind of survival mode of running an event to make an event an event. And that's really what we want to do.
And with that being said, do you experience anything where I see it in some other states where it is recruiting sort of for UW, whether that be students, getting them on to see the campus? Did you have any messages from like WSU or Central and saying, we want the same opportunity?
We haven't to date. Would be great. We just, one of the things we're doing is next week, we're sending out bid documents for not this coming year, but the following 4 years to align with our classification cycle. That's another piece of this is being education-based and not club-based. Our goal is to get kids on college campuses, kids like me whose parents didn't go to college. A college was this mystical place that you didn't know how to navigate or what it was. And so me going to a basketball camp at Oregon State as a 7th grader and being on a college campus, like at least gave me an idea of what it was. Otherwise, I would have never been on a college campus. So what we're hoping is when fans come out, they'll walk the campus, find out about it, do some information. I think UW, I'm assuming, is going to try to do, they don't have an issue necessarily with people wanting to go there, but still a chance to show off their campus. We're trying the same thing with Gonzaga with the basketball tournament. Like, what a great way to get people on campus to come over and experience Gonzaga. Gonzaga is a beautiful campus. So, college partners, we think we can bring something to the table for them as well. So we're hoping that this becomes a model that works for colleges and for the WIAA to get students who otherwise may not be on a college campus the exposure to get on there and see a variety of them, to find one that feels like home. So communities, schools, what have you, buildings, private, public, can bid on hosting all our state events. So we're trying to make it available to everybody. So whoever is interested in hosting can put a bid in, and our board will make a decision based on what we get. So for football, we'll see that one a little bit later. We're going to push that one out in September, October-ish, and then not make a decision until after state football to see how this goes, so people have time to plan. So that's our goal, is to make it, competitive to host our events. One, it helps us in a variety of ways. What we're seeing, Bellingham this year and Everett, what Bellingham did for our students who participate in baseball up there, I mean, they provided things for fans. Yakima does that on a regular basis. For the cheerleaders, they have the cheerleader breakfast, which is an addition for basketball. The volleyball girls, they do a spaghetti dinner with the hoteliers. So there's some communities that really embrace this and want to make it a special event for all participants. And that's what we're hoping through the bid process that we do. In the meantime, we're going to try this year and see how it works.
And I think you make a great point of the people that park and want to just watch great football. I used to live and cover sports in North Dakota, and they all play. They have less classifications, but they start at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I tell you what, there's people there, and I'm sure they stayed all day. It was like a 20-hour work day for me, but it was electric. And this kind of might tap into those fans.
Yeah, I mean, the people who hosted us down there, Jim Iroff, James Neal with Tacoma and Puyallup, Clover Park School District. I mean, they did a great job taking care of our kids and the participants. So this is not a reflection on there. It's just the facility. I mean, there's something magical about it. North Dakota, I was born in Rugby, North Dakota. So I know by the time football playoffs roll around there, they're not going to get a lot of people going outside watching football. But by having the dome, they got a chance. And so I've talked to Matt about that quite a bit, actually. Unfortunately for our dome, it's just not conducive to football right now. We met with Tacoma Dome last week. Again, we're continuing conversations. We're always trying to find a way to make it work. We pride ourselves on being innovative. And so if it enhances the experience and it's a sustainable option, then that's what we're going to do.
Rugby, North Dakota, geological center of North America and home to the pineapple whip.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny.
We were talking about a lot of the cost for families to attend events should you choose to go the route like Lumen Field, Husky Stadium, where it's going to be. So what does that mean for fans attending, which is one of the drawbacks to going this route?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the issues when we go to large stadiums. They have their own ticketing. That was why one of the concessions the Huskies made was to let us use our own ticketing so we can control that additional electronic. There's a cost to using ticketing, right? There's a cost to hard ticketing. So electronic ticketing is way more efficient. It's actually cheaper labor-wise, as well as, loss and anything else you deal with. So that being said, it can be $6, $7, $8, $9, $10 additional ticket. We're going to be able to control that this year at Husky Stadium. Again, that's why it's a trial and experiment, see if that works for the Huskies and that they can maintain their contract with their vendor that way. And our board did recently in June approve a $1 ticket increase across the board for all events. I think it's the first one in 10 years or 11 years or something. So it's been a long time. The goal originally was like every other year, but we've tried to hold off on that as much as we can, so that will help with some of the costs. And again, the other issue with big venues is to reserve dates in advance. To date, they have not guaranteed a rate for our most expensive cost is the labor, the security and ushers for all our venues. Rent, they can work with the rent. They're usually pretty good about that. But it's their hard cost, their real costs. And so they will not give a firm price each year to date. This is one of the things we're asking for in our bid, because they pass along their increase in employees to us, and that can be significant. We plan on 12 to 15% every year, especially in the Puget Sound area, where costs are just out of control with inflation and everything else. I mean, it's expensive to operate and live in the Puget Sound area. So that being said, we're waiting to see what they do with these bids for that, because that's another piece. Is just every year, if we make $60,000 on a tournament and costs go up 15 to 20,000 a year, in 3 years we're cost neutral, and that's what's paying for the non-revenue sports. So basketball doesn't just pay for itself, football doesn't just pay for itself. We need that for our other non-revenue sports. So there's matrix of, it's like any business, there's factors, and you're working with partners that have the same type of challenges. So fortunately, we have good relationships with all of them, so we can have very candid and open conversations and see if we can work it out. We do surveys after our events of students and coaches and try to get as many fans and others. So we have 2 years of data that we'll compare to this year. So I'm really curious to see, the students running out on that field. That's going to be a lifetime memory, which is our job, right? Create those opportunities. It'll be interesting after they play the game, especially for any that have played in those high school events, what the atmosphere is during the game, because in those high school stadiums, it's been loud. I mean, you can feel the energy in those stadiums. Now we're going to be in an 80,000 seat venue with maybe 4,000 people in the stands. Hopefully we get more than that. But what's that going to feel like and sound like down on the field, as opposed to what we've experienced with that same number, a comparable number in a tighter footprint? So I'll be really curious what students think about that. And we have our assumptions. They're going to love it, right? And I hope they do, because they'll talk about it forever, and they'll probably, in today's world, you can't tell the tale like you did back when I was in there. It's easier to fact check, but no one's going to be able to say they had 5 touchdowns without somebody being able to Google it real quick. But they'll still be able to have that experience of running out the field, watching those games on TV or in person, and saying, hey, I caught a ball there, I made a tackle there, I did this, I did that. So, that's really what we try to do for kids wherever we can do it. So.
Dwindling fan numbers for high school sporting events. Are there less fans, or simply the experience that's lacking? The WIAA wants to answer just that and will put out a bid for the 2024 to 2028 seasons. But in 2023, all eyes are on the numbers to know the future of the Golden Ball in high school football, a defining moment in the Boys of Fall lives. Well, those that are lucky enough to make it to Husky Stadium, and to be determined for years to come. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, I'm Jamie Council.